Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, John Clark, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. No one is above the law. We hear that parroted phrase on every cable news program and leftist media outlets as former President Donald Trump stands trial on how he accounted for payouts to porn star Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels left a lot of people thinking Trump was going to be free at last. Then along came Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer and confidant. Cohen testified this week, throwing former First Lady Melania under the bus, along with the mister, by painting a picture of a bully. And, well, we can skip the salacious stuff. Following Cohen, the testimony and cross-examination by the defense, the prosecution is scheduled to rest. At the time of our recording, we have one salient question that matters. Did Trump break the law? Despite the circus outside the courtroom, has the prosecution made its case? There is no one better to explain what has happened in the courtroom with the former president than Scott Cosenza, Esquire. Care to explain where we're at?
You said we could skip the salacious stuff. That doesn't leave much, meat on the bone there, Sarah. It was a shocking display of salacious stuff. I thought just the admission of her testimony at all seemed out of line, generally speaking, to have her as a witness at the trial. And then the things that she did testify to, like you say, the salacious details, have no place in this matter. Mr. Trump is accused of reimbursing Michael Cohen for the confidentiality clause, aka hush money payment to Ms. Daniels. And just the way he made those payments was he structured it as if Mr. Cohen was performing legal services. And it was a way to obtain confidentiality within that payment itself, rather than saying reimbursement for confidentiality payoff, right? In terms of like an accounting thing. And so that's what it's about. But the existence of those payments or that one payment actually, with respect to Ms. Daniels, was never in question. So why was she in court in the first place? In other words, Trump didn't say he didn't pay the money or didn't reimburse Cohen for it. So what is she doing there? Well, if, like me, you believe that the entire prosecution is politically motivated in order to hurt Donald Trump's electoral chances, she provided a massive benefit. News cycle after news cycle with more negative news stories about Donald Trump and exactly where it hurts. Swing state women voters. That's who these salacious details hit the hardest in terms of denigrating Mr. Trump's reputation and maybe swaying some votes where it matters. So I think it was a smashing success for the prosecution in that regard. Did he do anything illegal? Not so far as the prosecution has demonstrated in court. That's the answer to your direct question.
Okay, well, wouldn't the swing state female voters, none of them are perfect, correct? So isn't this basically a non-disclosure agreement that every divorce attorney in the world uses so that they can't bring all this stuff back up? This sounds weird to me. I mean, do you think
it doesn't matter?
Dave,
it doesn't matter what how those potential voters live their own lives. I think what matters is that in publications that they read, and I think probably for most of them, unfortunately, at least not yet, they're not typically libertynation.com readers. If they're, these are lower information voters. Our viewers are higher information voters. Our viewers and listeners and readers are higher information voters. And so what we have here is, some negative news story that splashes on the pages that's anti-Trump and in a way that really hits them where they live and makes him, it imputes his character in a bad way. So,
right?
Again, that's the political side. There's these two things, right? There's the legal track and the political track. So back to the legal track, if I can, the prosecution has to prove that Donald Trump defrauded someone or something, and also that he knew and intended to violate the federal election law in doing so. So far, I have seen no evidence presented that he did that, except for the opinions of people who were closely associated with Mr. Trump. So in Mr. Cohen's opinion, that's why Mr. Trump did what he did and made that payoff. In Mr. Pecker, the National Enquirer guy, in his opinion, that's why Mr. Trump did what he did. But that's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt that it was Mr. Trump's motivation. And those beliefs of Pecker and Cohen are not supported by direct quotes that establish those points. So I don't understand how those words can establish proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump did violate the law.
Hey, Dave, do you think Trump's going to take the stand at any time?
I think that his inclination would be to take the stand and defend himself. But as good as that might make him feel, I think there's too much danger in that. Right now, the basic arguments, as Scott has mentioned, basic arguments are going his way. And there have been a lot of salacious accusations, but that's all there have been. And, there's no evidence of a crime from what the media lawyers have explained. And there were no charges of crimes as we know them, but rather assertions of lousy bookkeeping. And, and there's been little in the way of relevant testimony to the bookkeeping irregularities.
Oh, so you mean another accounting, a little bit of an accounting problem might sway the 2024 election?
Well, so far, none of the prosecutor's witnesses have said, yes, I have firsthand knowledge that Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z, and those actions are a crime. I can see no advantage whatsoever for the former President Trump taking the stand and, possibly falling into a prosecutor's cleverly worded gotcha. This trial is so far all about jury perception management. And it has little to do with the unexplained crimes.
Over the winter, but that was the biggest thing that people were polling on for presidential polling. And Reuters had a poll that showed about 1 in 4 Republicans say they would not support Trump if he were convicted of a felony crime. Is that, okay, so that's what everybody was thinking at one time. Are we still thinking that? Are the Republicans still thinking that? Are the Democrats still thinking they have an edge here?
Not really. You look at the exit polls. You show quite the opposite. You see that a majority of the, let's say Ohio, for example, Republican voters said that they would still support Donald Trump if he were convicted. If you look at the polling data over the last few months, you just see it going up and up and up, including in the key battleground states, as Lisa Donner reported recently, LibertyNation.com. Mm-hmm. You see him leading in I think four or five of the 6 battleground states. So I think he probably prefers this because he's getting all this free publicity. He grandstands before every day he appears in court. He talks to the press. I think it's like in 2016 where he got about $1 billion in free coverage. He's probably getting about the same amount of thing. Plus, this whole trial is probably angering millions of Americans who think, yeah, this is a weaponization of the justice system, and they're targeting their political opponents. So Trump is probably enjoying this. It's just I wonder how he's going to pay for all of this in the end. He just has to sell more DJT stock to cover his legal bills,
or maybe monopoly money. Clark,
hey, that's what U.S. dollars are these days.
Our professor in the House,
and an attorney,
I watched
just for the record, for when he answers the question about whether Trump should take the stand.
Yeah, well, everybody's talking. I reported on Trump hitting New Jersey Beach, and they were anticipating perhaps 40,000 people, and that's huge as it is. And now New Jersey is saying that 100,000 people were there on hand at that rally. Does that tell us anything, or is it just optics again, as if it was just a distraction?
Well, I think that George Soros paid 60,000 of them to show up to make Trump look bad. So as a former tax attorney and criminal defense attorney, I have some insights here to add to our House counsel's very good summary of the facts. As a tax attorney, my understanding here, and I don't have Scott's familiarity with this case in detail because it turns my stomach to watch such a fiasco circus as it did in the New York case. But I would, of course, tell him not to take the stand. I'm not sure that it matters for the reasons you and Andrew are intimating at. But as a tax lawyer, as far as I understand, he simply mischaracterized the payment. So it still would have been deductible. So there was no tax fraud. And claims of election subversion are weak, and certainly there's no evidence to it. So that's why he shouldn't say anything, because there'd be good grounds for an appeal. But it seems like Americans have already decided. Joe Biden's constantly saying, oh, he's been charged with 90-something felonies. And so as if he's guilty without being proved guilty. And this is where we see people being punished for the ancient history of bringing Stormy Daniels in to salivate over old details that have nothing to do with his monetary policy or his ability to lead. So despite the polls and some people saying that they would turn against him if he was convicted, I'm not sure that that really matters. I think that some people perceive that they would, but in total, what we have also is the contrast that, well, what about the subversion? If this is subversion, what about the subversion of the Hunter laptop? What about the Steele dossier? This is lawfare at its finest. So I think a lot of Americans are going to see through that, so that, frankly, it could backfire on the Democrats. Again, many Democrats, they're not going to vote for him even if he's exonerated. And I think many Republicans are not going to vote for him even if he's convicted. But I think a lot of independents might just start also to have a growing disgust with what really is a witch hunt. And that's what this looks like more all the time. They're looking for minutia to attach, heinous felony charges to. There's no victim here.
They keep finding it.
Sarah, before you come in, let me say this. What you just said, John, is very important for the analysis of this, which is that there is no fraud involved, tax fraud, that is. In other words, Donald Trump's company paid for the payment to Stormy Daniels, $130,000, and it would be an additional crime if somehow that was disallowable as a company payment, and part of the fraud was that he manipulated it so that it would be a company payment. That's not true. As you said, I want to say it again so everybody understands, it was an appropriate deductible payment that can be made through the corporate form. So literally, like, let's say that you were the president of a company and your wife did the books for the company, and you went to a meal that was a company-sponsored meal that was lawfully deductible, but instead of truthfully saying on your reimbursement form that you went to the ice cream parlor because your wife says eat less ice cream, and instead went to the salad bar, which she encourages, and you just wrote that down and you got reimbursed for that, and then that was filed with the state, according to the state of New York. Now that's a potential felony that you can then be prosecuted for because it was a lie, even though it was a lie that no one relied on to their detriment or no one was defrauded by, just that it was purposefully misstated on the form itself, is that it's somehow, criminal culpability attaches to that. And I would just say on the political front, John, to what you said is, what we just discussed is below the fold information. It's that lower information voter, above the fold stuff. Do they get to, we don't know what it's going to be like politically if there's a criminal conviction, a felony criminal conviction for a candidate. Lyndon LaRouche did not fare well. And obviously he's not Trump, but I wonder if, I don't know, it just seems like they're getting everything they want out of this, which is for those particular voters, those swing state voters, are they going to be mad at this? Are they paying attention enough to be mad? I share your outrage, by the way. It really did turn my stomach as a lawyer. Lawyer jokes aside, I had more respect for the system than what I witnessed with this clown show.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cosenza. I mean,
soapbox.
I also do not tune in to all of the details. It just kind of turns my stomach. So we do appreciate you being here and filling us in on all of the trials and tribulations facing Donald Trump, at least in this case. And Liberty Nation will keep you in the loop, as always. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.